Hello, Dr. G here from Natural Foods Diet. There's an obesity epidemic in the Western world, and today I'd like to talk about the hormone leptin. You've probably heard of leptin as it generated a lot of excitement back in 1994 when it was discovered. The term leptin was derived from the Greek word leptos, which means thin. Leptin's made in fat cells, and it sends a message to the brain about our energy status. One of the messages that leptin sends is that we have good energy, so we can turn off our hunger and turn down our craving for food. And since we have good energy, we can afford to use it liberally for exercise, for maintaining homeostasis, or for just burning it for fun. We can do it all. We don't need to hoard energy. So in other words, leptin stimulates fat burning. Leptin also inhibits the expression of NPY and agouti-related peptide, both of which promote gorging, or feeding behavior, as they say scientifically. So in other words, leptin makes it so you're not hungry, especially for carbohydrates. Leptin also stimulates the production of uncoupling protein 3 in the muscles. This allows the mitochondria to generate heat directly from fat versus creating ATP, which is a cell energy source. When a person is starving and our fat cells shrink, the leptin production is lowered, which turns on hunger and slows down our metabolism, mainly by slowing down or blocking thyroid action. So as it turns out, leptin is critically important for maintaining our energy balance. Now everyone knows we have an obesity epidemic ongoing in the world. In 2013, it was estimated there are 2.1 billion people obese or overweight. That number is greater than the whole population of the Earth was in 1927. So where does leptin fit into this scenario? If we have more and more people becoming more and more obese, why isn't leptin telling us to stop eating and turn up our stinking metabolisms? Especially when obesity is leading us into poor health, and even now we're finding a shorter lifespan. Well, I'll tell you what, that's the million-dollar question. And that question eventually became the billion-dollar question with the frenzy of research around the discovery of leptin. And it's been truly amazing. Since its discovery, there have been over 26,000 published studies on leptin. Now, one of the reasons so much money was poured into this research was because at one time it was hoped that leptin was going to be the perfect antidote for obesity. The pharmaceutical industry could just make a little bitty leptin pill, and this would make us feel full, and at the same time would boost our metabolism, and everything would be hunky-dory. The Holy Grail. Thinness with a simple little pill with no side effects. Now, unfortunately, the leptin pill didn't work. What was found is that people that were overweight already had high leptin levels, so the research continued. And now there's a theory that the reason fat people don't respond to leptin is because of leptin resistance. Now, one of the places that leptin resistance occurs is in the brain at the level of the hypothalamus. In fact, it's been shown that C-reactive protein, high sensitivity CRP, this is one of the lab tests that I always do on my patients. CRP actually binds to leptin so that it can't cross into the brain and stimulate the leptin receptor, which does all those good things to make us thin. So there are several things other things that studies have shown that contribute to leptin resistance besides CRP. And this includes elevated fats in our bloodstream, particularly triglycerides. And this is why carb intake is important. Other sources of inflammation are cytokines, and these are secreted by various tissues. Also, cortisol, the stress hormone produced by the adrenal gland, can also set up leptin resistance. So maybe an answer to obesity and all these other diseases out there that are linked to inflammation might be to get our brains listening to leptin again. Now, if you think about leptin and obesity, this is the perfect vicious cycle. And it's the underlying reason overweight and obesity are not being controlled, even when no one out there wants to be fat. You see, fat itself creates boatloads of inflammation, and inflammation contributes to leptin resistance, which contributes to food craving and decreased metabolism. This leads to insulin resistance, which elevates our blood sugars and just compounds the problem. So it's the perfect storm, the most vicious of vicious cycles. But I found there's a way out of this cycle that's highly effective. Back in 2002, a nutritionist, Byron Richards, wrote a book entitled Mastering Leptin that was based on his review of the massive research on leptin and how to apply it clinically using simple eating rules that reestablish leptin's function, namely to boost our metabolism and to decrease hunger and cravings. Now this was taken a step further by tying leptin to circadian biology, and this was done by Dr. Jack Kruse in his health program. Tying the clinical lifestyle approaches with reyoking metabolism with circadian cycles has led to a program that I found is highly successful in reestablishing leptin sensitivity. Believe it or not, in my clinical experience, leptin resistance usually precedes other conditions that people believe is the cause of their weight gain and their fatigue. This means that leptin resistance most of the time is behind my patients having thyroid disorders, insulin resistance, diabetes, adrenal fatigue, and other conditions that are associated with inflammation, like mental disorders, neurodegeneration, bone and cartilage degeneration, cardiovascular disease, and autoimmune diseases. The other critical factor regarding leptin is that if we just go on a diet and reduce our caloric intake, leptin will go down and we will stop burning fat and we will crave carbohydrates. And guess what? Any weight that is lost will eventually be gained back. This has been proven over and over in the medical literature. So yes, the multitude of weight loss programs out there work in the short term, but all fail in the long term because they don't consider the actions of leptin. So in a nutshell, I can tell you how I reestablish leptin sensitivity in my patients. First off, how do you know if you're leptin resistant? Well, the easiest way is to go look in a mirror. That's pretty simple and direct, especially if you're naked. A photo of yourself naked is even better. If you see blubber protruding outward, especially if it's around your gut, like around the belt or the love handles or the muffin tops, or here's a good tip. If you're looking downward like this and you can't see your shoes, you're almost certainly leptin resistant. Now it is possible to have a normal looking shape and still be fat on the inside. An MRI will tell you this, but that's an expensive way to do it. A cheaper way is a body composition test with bioimpedance or DEXA. These give you your percent body fat and tell you if you have too much fat. Now, if you're too thin, then you may also have leptin resistance. Now, simple lab tests correlate with leptin resistance, and this includes the high sensitivity CRP I talked about, which actually binds to leptin and produces leptin resistance, but also a 25-hydroxy vitamin D level that's low, or if you have an elevated reverse T3 to T3 ratio is another lab finding that is suggestive of leptin resistance. Byron Richards came up with 5 rules for eating that help reestablish leptin sensitivity, and these are very simple. A high-protein breakfast within 30 minutes of waking up, 3 meals a day with no snacking, moderately low carbohydrate intake, avoid overeating at mealtime, and finish eating 4 hours or more before bedtime. Now I would add that hydration with spring water is also very important. Staying connected to the planet with grounding is also very important. Getting plenty of morning sun and sunshine is very important. But that's it. And I can tell you, if you do this, it will help a lot. But be advised, there's another huge source of inflammation that results in leptin resistance, and that's leaky gut syndrome. So if you're leptin resistant and you have gut problems, you need to fix that problem as you recover your leptin sensitivity. Other lifestyle changes that are helpful include improving your sleep, stress reduction, exercise, and plugging up energy losses to the environment. Most of us have these, but for most of us, it's hidden in our blind spot. There are also supplements that can be very helpful in the beginning with both the weight loss and resetting leptin sensitivity. This includes conjugated linoleic acid, the omega-3 fatty acids, chemicals in many herbs like green tea, Ervingia, olive leaf, and many others. Check out our leptin reboot on our free diet profile at naturalfoodsdiet.org. This is Dr. G. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe to our channel.